Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dylan James. I'm a mindset coach that loves to specifically focus on relationships. And today we're going to talk about why you don't need to be delusional or illogical. And in fact, you shouldn't be delusional or illogical when making mindset changes. In my opinion, anything that you apply from a mindset perspective should make 100% sense. So if you're on the internet watching a whole bunch of different content and just applying what you hear and just hoping that it works, I want you to ask yourself, in life, when have you ever taken the approach of just doing something and wishing for the best and hoping that everything works out for you? Is that generally an approach that we take? No, right? And so, in my opinion, or at least in my approach, I really focus on sustainability. And, you can do techniques if you want to, but I think the only person you have to focus on is you. And so if you've naturally been creating experiences in your life, whether they're good or bad, you can get into a version of yourself where you naturally create the experiences that you do want in the same kind of effortless manner. So what that means is, and the reason why I say it shouldn't be illogical is because you should be able to look at your life, okay, and the patterns that have occurred in your life, not only circumstantially as an adult, but foundationally as a child, and see what actually needs to be changed. Okay. And when I say look at the patterns, what I'm talking about is looking at the things you're entertaining, the ways you're responding, if there are consistent problems arising, why, right? Like when those issues arise, how are you operating and handling them? And also working with so many people, I want to say this, you can literally look at your foundational experiences and then the things you experience as an adult, and they're pretty much an exact replica, right? So if your needs and wants weren't considered as a kid, you're going to find that in multiple different areas of your life, you are entertaining dynamics or responding in ways or setting examples where people are not honoring your wants and needs. Maybe the friendships are more draining, the relationships are more draining, you're catering to other people. If you didn't receive enough attention or affection growing up, then you're going to see that in multiple different dynamics in your life. Sustaining, fulfilling friendships, relationships, co-working dynamics is difficult because there's this deep yearning for attention or in friendships and relationships, affection. If you were not celebrated growing up, then you're going to find that you have a really hard time sustaining success in your life and celebrating your own successes. Okay. That's a little bit, I want to add a little bit to that because you can come from a chaotic environment and school can be an outlet for you where you do create success, but then you find you really struggle with interpersonal relationships. Okay. So the point that I'm trying to make here is when you're applying mindset work, when you're absorbing different types of content, I don't love the advice of being delusional or illogical because it's not necessary. It's actually very logical for you to adopt healthy beliefs that allow for you to show up in new ways, respond in new ways, and sustain new results in your life because you've actually changed as a person. Now, there is one component that can feel a little bit delusional and illogical, but everything that you're applying should make sense. Okay. You should be able to look at how things are currently and historically and see, okay, these patterns are arising. These things impacted me. I probably adopted beliefs like this. So when I change these beliefs, it's going to allow for me to operate in these new ways, which is going to allow for me to sustain new results. Okay. That is very, very logical. Okay. The only part that is slightly illogical is when you're beginning to address and change your beliefs, you're doing it from a belief system that does not support that type of thinking, right? In fact, your brain has memories and evidence of the opposite experiences. So, for instance, let's say receiving commitment has been something that you've struggled with, okay? And so you found over the years you are, in quite a few situationships and maybe, you had one parent that just wasn't there growing up or both parents were just so enveloped in their own drama, so they weren't very attentive to you and in a way that's being non-committed to you, right? So your brain has all this evidence of situationships and foundational experiences that say commitment's not a normal thing for you. So when you begin to go in the direction of it's becoming normal for me to receive genuine commitment in my relationships, the very beginning is going to feel a little bit delusional because you're going in a direction that your brain has no evidence to support. That is where the wording of the beliefs is very, very important. And that's where nervous system regulation is very important, in my opinion. So you can relax your body enough so it feels safe to take on this way of identifying. And if you can word the belief in a way that feels good, that gives you the space to grow and isn't too big of a jump, then you're going to begin to adopt this belief a lot more easily. And then you trigger the process, the natural process, which is your brain naturally searches for evidence to support what you believe. So you begin to perceive your reality differently. You begin to relate to your reality differently. You begin to come into new perception shifts. And as that is occurring, you begin to behaviorally show up differently and organize yourself in new ways and begin to respond confidently through this new belief or belief system that will allow for you to create new results. The first change you're going to experience when it comes to applying mindset work is a change within you. A change, again, like I was saying, with how you're perceiving your reality, you're relating to your reality, even how you are understanding previous past experiences that you've gone through. You begin to give the proper ownership and accountability and see reality for what it was instead of over assuming blame and internalizing things that you shouldn't be internalizing. And as that really begins to happen, you naturally begin to show up differently, behave differently, organize yourself differently, tracked in new experiences and are actually able to sustain them because you're in a belief system that allows for you to respond to your reality naturally in a way that is organic and authentic to you that will allow for you to sustain those results. And that, even that is not illogical, right? Because even the delusional part makes sense, right? If I don't have any experiences to support this belief, then it's logical for me to feel a bit delusional, right? When I'm going in a new direction. And that is where how you discipline yourself and organize yourself when you're adopting new beliefs is important. But nowhere in that should you be feeling delusional, illogical, completely, applying things that are triggering you so much, causing you to spiral out. Because when you try to persist in the direction of results your belief system cannot support, what happens is you're bringing, so for instance, let's go back to that commitment belief, okay? Let's say you're trying to persist for whatever reason that John is committed to you, okay? But you have a belief system that is, it's not normal for me to receive commitment. When you try to just tell yourself a result from a belief system that's not congruent with that result, not only is it going to feel extremely delusional, but you're actually triggering yourself because every time you affirm that, your brain, this belief system that is, it's not normal for me to receive commitment, is going to reject this. And it's going to reject it in a few ways. One, it's going to reflect on memories and moments where that statement, this thing you're trying to persist in, isn't true. But two, you're going to find that your brain searches for evidence of what you actually do believe to disprove this thing that you're trying to persist in. And it becomes a very vicious cycle. You normally form a super negative attachment and become very obsessed with this outcome because consciously you want it, but subconsciously your entire body is rejecting it and searching for opposite evidence, and it becomes very conflicting, right? Because you get really frustrated on a conscious level and you're like, okay, I just need to persist more. When the reality is, no, you're actually triggering yourself. You're triggering yourself when you're trying to focus on this result from a belief system that is not congruent with that type of thinking or those types of results. The better approach would be to focus on actually addressing those beliefs and becoming somebody that holds beliefs where receiving commitment is a normal thing. And then we're not pedestalizing John. We're not obsessed with John. We're not sitting here waiting for John. We're moving about our reality as somebody that can actually create that result and allowing for those experiences to naturally come in. Even that is not illogical or delusional. So how you apply things really matters. I'm not saying that as a limiting belief. I'm saying that as somebody that is very experienced in mindset, that has coached probably at least 1,000 people at this point, and also as a human being that has gone through their own development and adjusted their beliefs. There are easier ways to approach this. If you want to be triggered all day long, go at it, okay? If you want to make a sustainable change within yourself and actually grow and have a daily quality of life that's enjoyable and also create the things that you want and not wait for anything and become somebody that has options, then you should probably listen to what I'm saying. All right. So I hope that all makes sense. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I will see you all later.